Rahul sir, I'm here present. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, madam.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
audible.
Yes, Aditi. Yes, Aditi.
Yes.
Uh, Participants, kindly mute your audio and video and please do not share your screen or else it's getting disturbed in the presentation. So, a very good afternoon to one and all present and connected virtually together. Warm welcome to Redesigning AJMAL Law College, HOJAI. We are truly overwhelmed that we have received around 2,000 registered participants from different global corners, and we truly appreciate your engagement and association with this workshop. I truly hope that we will meet our fruitful expectations from this live interactive session. Myself, Aditi Ghosh, will assist today as a moderator in proceeding our afternoon sessions successfully. And with this, I welcome you all once again in this elite gathering. Also, I express my regards to the entire teaching community on the auspicious eve of National Teachers' Day. Before moving on to our second technical session, entitled How to Avail Foreign Scholarship and Apply for Foreign Universities, let me take the privilege to introduce our eminent and distinguished speaker, Dr. Kakoli Bhattacharya, Research and Development Engineer, L'Oreal Research Innovation, Paris, France. Well, I must surely add on her masterful and dexterous experiences and academic establishments. Remarkable academic record. She has been a PhD scholar in the Department of Physics, Tezpur University, Assam, India. During her PhD studying period, she has made opportunities such as Raman Charpak Fellow, University Claude Bernard Lyon in the Lyon area of France. She has also received Newton Bhabha Fellowship Award, University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. She has been engaged with Atomic Energy Commission, Saclay, France, as a postdoctoral researcher, and she presently is working as the Research and Development Engineer, L'Oreal Research Innovation, Paris, France. With such a spectacular note of address, I proffer the platform to you, ma'am, for proceeding our second technical session. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I would like to wish all the teachers organizing this workshop today a very happy Teachers' Day, and I thank all of you today for this great initiative and inviting me today to speak to you all. I'm trying to share my presentation to you. Do you guys see my presentation or not? Just
No,
a
ma'am,
second. I'm
it's
just
not
trying
visible.
Chrome tab, your entire screen. Share. Is it visible now?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you see the slide or everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible, madam?
It's visible, right?
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
it is visible, Kakoli. It is visible.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now it's visible.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so I was saying that thank you all for organizing this workshop. Like we are living in very strange times today, and I'm glad to see how even during this challenging times, we're looking forward towards positive things. And I hope I can give some of my knowledge or some of the things that I learned while I applied to this fellowships that I got today, and I hope that I can share some useful information with you guys today. So today I have been specifically asked to speak about all the ways we can apply and all the different kinds of scholarships to study abroad, like foreign scholarships to study abroad. So first of all, I would like to say I'm not an educational consultant. So I'll tell you guys what I have experienced when I applied to different universities or different scholarships. So yeah, I applied to universities abroad and I failed miserably. And then I learned how to correct the mistakes that I made. And finally, I succeeded in having 2 international scholarships, and I spent time in two countries, in UK and in France. So like me, I imagine most of you guys come from, like many of you, you come from middle class families where we cannot afford huge family financial support to go abroad and study abroad for 2-3 years, or education loans, which can be really cumbersome and which can really hang on your shoulders for a long time. So does that mean that we cannot go abroad and we cannot study abroad? No, that's why there are scholarships, and I'm glad and I'm surprised to find that there are so many scholarships which we can apply as Indian students, as international students. But the trick to find them is to really research, and sometimes it can be really exhausting, but in the end, it's very beneficial for you and your career. So I'll present to you a step-by-step guide. It's totally based on my personal experience, on my failures and my successes, on how I achieved these 2 scholarships. Like the first scholarship I achieved was to go to France. It's a Raman Charpak fellowship. It's a bilateral fellowship between India and France. So I achieved this scholarship during my PhD period. So I spent 6 months in a research lab in France when I was doing my PhD from Tezpur University. I spent 6 months in France. And after that scholarship, I achieved another scholarship, which is the Newton Bhabha scholarship, for which I spent 3 months in University of Nottingham. So all this during my PhD duration. So basically, I didn't study in any foreign universities, but I got these scholarships to spend a significant amount of my PhD research time in international in different countries. So I will. So that is one way of availing fellowships, but other ways of having of availing international fellowships are like going to study. Like it's common knowledge, like going to do masters or your PhD or postdoc in foreign countries. So today I'm trying to explain to you a bit of what I know of how to go through the process. So the first in the process is why. Like first of all, like before going to the step-by-step guide, I want to explain to you my background. Like just to explain to you that I come from a very simple background, and like I didn't study in IITs. Like there is this taboo in our community, basically, when we are from Assam, and we don't, like most of the time since we are like nowadays we are getting all the knowledge and such because of the development of internet, but still we don't know some of the knowledge, and still we think that we cannot compete with all the students from the central part of India. Like they're well connected, they have good institutes, so they get good knowledge, but this is not the case. Like now with internet and all, we can have all the information at our hand. So just to present to you what is my background, like I did my BSc in physics from Hendick College. After that, I went for my master degree, and I did my master degree in nanoscience and technology in Tezpur University. And after this, I tried to study abroad, PhDs abroad. I applied to many universities. Like first of all, it's very expensive to spend money to, like, first of all, I was trying to apply in US, so I spent a lot of money to for all the applications in US, and finally I didn't get. So then I was like thinking of all the things, like then I did all the research, like why my applications were not successful in US, like when I applied for my PhD. And I found out the reasons. I will speak to you later in the course of the presentation. And then I start working on those weak points in my CV. And I said, okay, in my mind, I always wanted to go abroad and do a small, either a PhD or spend some time abroad. So I started to work on my CV, on my weak points. And the next logical step, what I did was to do my PhD in physics in Tezpur University. So I was, like, Tezpur University is one of the leading universities in India today. So yes, I was like still very happy that I could do my PhD from Tezpur University. And during that time, I availed 2 fellowships. First one is the Newton Bhabha Fellowship. The first one is the Raman Charpak, and the second one I got was the Newton Bhabha Fund. So I spent 6 months and 3 months in France and UK. And after that, I saw that my CV, it has attained a certain level, and I applied after my PhD. I applied to postdocs in abroad again because I really wanted to have one part of my career abroad. So I applied, and finally I got a postdoc in CEA. The CEA is the Atomic Energy Commission of France. So it's like one of the top level research institute in France. So I got to spend 2 years in that institute. I worked as a postdoc, and then after that, I got recruited as a research engineer in L'Oréal Research and Innovation. So at present, I'm working as a research engineer in L'Oréal Research and Innovation. So you could see that, for me, I don't have like IIT tags in my CV, or like I didn't study like.
Ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Ma'am, sorry.
Ma'am, your presentation and audio are not clearly
Is it visible, the presentation, or not?
Not yet, ma'am.
Sorry?
No, ma'am, it is not visible.
The presentation is not visible? Okay. Yes, now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it is visible. Yes, ma'am.
And can you hear me? Like, can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So yes. So sorry.
Yes, ma'am. I just request the participants not to share their screen. That's why it's
Getting interrupted in between.
Okay.
And ma'am, you can continue.
Okay. So you can see, like, in my CV, I didn't do like up to my PhD. Before getting these funds, I was not studying in like very sophisticated universities in India. I didn't do any IITs, but then there are still ways of how you can improve your CV and how you can apply for for scholarships abroad, and I'll let you know about all this that I learned during this process. So first of all, we want to know if why study abroad. Like I was always thinking like why do I want to study abroad? So for me, I had like several reasons, and so for all the participants who like some of you may be thinking of studying abroad, I would advise you to find your own reason. Like there can be like when you look from outside, it looks okay. Yes, studying abroad, you have a lot of fun. You can travel. You are staying in a different place. But then there are some disadvantages which comes along with it too. So you have to weigh in the pros and cons. For example, in my case, I wanted like one of my motivation was to be to make my CV, to make my resume more attractive to employers. So since I was not coming from IITs and all, so I wanted something different in my CV which can help me to compete against all the people who are like all the brilliant people who are coming from very excellent schools. And so I wanted to have that X factor in my CV. So I wanted to, first of all, it was to make my CV attractive. Then it was like I wanted to travel abroad. So I wanted to see the world, and I wanted to learn new culture. Like all these things were like my personal reasons. I note down like why I wanted to study abroad. And then, yes, but along with this, there were some other hidden facts that I didn't know at that time when I studied, when I applied abroad. For example, when I came to France, I didn't know that you have to learn the local language. So you have to learn French in order to make friends. So at the beginning, I didn't know about this. So there was some, like for a few months, I had to learn a new language, to make new friends, to enjoy my life completely in a new country. So there are many different reasons. You can have your own personal reasons for why you want to study abroad. So I would suggest you to write in a piece of paper like why do you want to study abroad. So you find your own personal reason, and be sure that like if like your only reason, one simple reason to study abroad could be like just to see if you can live abroad, or if you can stay one semester abroad or stay 1 year abroad, just to see that, just to discover and immerse in new culture, just to have wide knowledge. Like of course the universities, they have like world-class facilities, and you work with like the best top class level scientists, academicians. Sometimes you work next to a Nobel Prize winner person, and you would never even notice that he got Nobel Prize. Like it happened to me once. So yeah, so you like, for me, the first reason to try to study abroad is to find your own reason. Once you have your own reason, the second question is where to study abroad, because of course there are many countries which have world-class education, which provides great scholarships to students. So where to choose? So there are many questions that you need to ask yourself, where to like go to study abroad. For example, the two important questions are which course you want to study, and expenses. Like for us, we have to always think about expenses. So these are the two most important questions. And then after that, you have to think like, what is the scope of this course that you're going to study abroad? And when you'll come back in India, what will be the return of investment? Like, would you be able to get a job using this course that you're studying? Don't go to study abroad just for the sake of studying abroad. Like since you want to get something out of it, so think about like take it very seriously, and you have to really do a lot of research before applying abroad. So the second important question is employment opportunities. Like for example, if you go to some country and then you do the course and look back, like if you can get employed in India because of this course, and also in the country where you're staying, like are there opportunities for a job if you do the course there? Then there are secondary questions like if it's taught in English, if it's taught in another language, will you have part-time job if you are a student there, like if you get a scholarship but still you need to have some more extra money, are you allowed to have a part-time job, visa requirements, do you fulfill the admission conditions before applying, and all this. So these are the questions that would help you, that helped me to to select the destination, like where to study. And when after you have this destination, like you have your why, you have your where, then you have to narrow down. Like for example, if you choose a destination, for like there are many different tests along with your grades, along with your results. There are many other supplementary exams they ask you to apply for this, to apply for the course, as well as to apply for the scholarships. So you have to check all these things. Do you need a GRE? Do you need a English language test? Do you need MBA? So these language tests, all these tests, they need a thorough level of preparation too. Like me, I applied for GRE and TOEFL at the time when I was applying to US. So they need like 6 to 8 months of preparation to really do good, to have good scores. But still I didn't get, that's another part of the story. But yes, so you have to see which exams you need to take before. So after getting all this information, next step is to have a look at the brief timeline. I'm just presenting you a general timeline of when you start to think about going abroad till the date you go abroad, till the date your course starts. So the most important thing, if you want to study abroad, you have to think in advance. Like this is the most important thing. You have to think in advance, like start 1 to 1.5 years before. So this is the general timeline. Like you start in January. You have to collect different documents, like you have to do these tests. Some countries, they don't ask this test. In US, it's mandatory, so you have to take tests if you want to go to US. You shortlist universities, you match with your CV. Like if you have to see, you have to evaluate, you have to look at the statistics, like with your profile and with your background, do you think you can succeed in this university? So there are many different things you have to take into account. You have to choose high-level universities. You have to put a few middle level, and then you have to concoct a mix of universities where you will apply. So all this takes, for example, January to September, all this preparation, all this shortlisting. And then for example, from October, you start filling university application forms. Okay? So you see, it's a long procedure, so you need a lot of time. And then you fill your applications, you provide your essays. Some universities, they ask for essays, or they ask for your statement of purpose. Like, why do you want to apply to this university? Why do you think that you have what it needs to, what it takes to be a student in that university? What will you do with this degree, and how will you bring it back to your country, to your career? There are a lot of things. So you have to do all these things. You see, so from November to March, you just apply to the universities, you submit the applications, and then you wait for the results of the applications. So it can be just the application of directly to the universities, plus in some universities you have to apply for the scholarships. So parallelly, so there are two things going on. First, you apply to the university, also in the same time you apply to the scholarships, because some scholarships, they come directly with the university. Some scholarships you have to apply externally. So all this time you get the reply. Maybe it starts coming from some universities, you get the reply from January, some you get late, maybe May, June. And then you have the visa process, and then finally the term, your master course, your PhD course, it starts usually from September to October, either in September or in October. So you see, it's a long process. Like, it takes 1 to 1.5 years of thorough preparation if you want to have a successful application. And now, like now, I will tell you some of the scholarships which you can apply to have like different scholarships you can apply to study abroad. Like there are many different kinds of scholarships. First, you have to know where to look, how to look, and you have to keep looking. Like some scholarships, they are so hidden. You have to really research, really look into the things. So there are like different kinds of scholarships, like merit-based scholarships, which are based on the excellence, like of your academic career. So if you have all throughout a very successful career, you are more likely to get this kind of scholarships. Then there are student-specific scholarships. For example, minority scholarships. These are scholarships, for example, for Asian students, for students coming from Africa, such kind of minority scholarships. Then there's program-specific scholarships. For example, you want to study a specific program in a university, there are some scholarships related to that subject in the university, where only the students who will study that subject can apply. For example, in University of Edinburgh in UK, they have this economics research and training scholarships. So that's only for the students who are going to study economics. There are different government-funded scholarships. For example, there are the Commonwealth Scholarship to go and study in UK. Like you can study master's, PhD, everything. Like these are like the scholarships funded by the UK government for foreign students to come and study in their universities. Then there are bilateral scholarships, like between two countries. Like, for example, India and France, these Charpaks Master Scholarships is for Indian and French master students to come, like exchange. They come to India, and the French students they come to India. Indian students, they go to France. So these are like only meant for Indian students. So there are less competition compared to other scholarships which are open to all nationalities. Then there are like, for example, trusts which provide scholarships. Like, for example, there is this Charles Wallace India Trust Scholarships. These are for Indian students to go to UK. This is a trust which provides scholarship. It's not a government, like it's kind of a government body, but it's based on Charles Wallace, who is a British personality who was born in India. So it's kind of like for Indian students to go and study there. Then there is this Tata Endowment Scholarships, which is provided by the JRD Tata Endowment Endowment Society, where they provide the scholarships for Indian students to go abroad. And then there are these scholarships, the green scholarships that I mentioned above. These are scholarships to go and study there. But then there are another kind of scholarships where you are still studying in India, but you go for one exchange semester. Like you go, like the way I did. Like you go for 6 months, you go for 1 year, you go for 3 months. You go and study. That too adds a lot of value in your CV. So you can do this kind of scholarships too if you don't want to go and spend 1 year, 2 years, 5 years in a foreign country. So you can do such kind of scholarships. For example, there is split side PhD scholarships to go to UK, which for example, you can go during your PhD. You can go there. You can spend 1 year, 6 months, 9 months and work in a laboratory or with a research group in UK. Then there is a Raman Charpak, which I availed, where I went to Lyon and I worked in Lyon for 6 months. Then there is Fulbright visiting scholar for US. You go there for 6 months. Sorry, it's for 9 months, I think, 9 months or 1 year. So you see, there are a plethora of scholarships. So there are a lot of scholarships which can help you go and study abroad, like if you really want to study abroad. So saying all this, now I will say a little bit about like me. I never went and studied in US, so I did the preparation, but then I never studied in US, so I have very small idea of how the education system is done. Like I know on paper, but I don't know in reality how does it work. So I will give you a brief example of how you can study and like have scholarships in Europe, because I am living in Europe from since past 3 years. I see people coming. I came here and I know a bit of how the education system works here, so I can give you a brief overview. So in Europe, the most best thing is that in some of the countries you can study for free, almost. So for example, here in the left hand side, I show you different countries. These are the European countries, and this is the tuition fee for students from Europe. So for them, everything is free. But for us, tuition fee for students from other countries, we have to pay, depending on countries, a huge amount of money. But then there are some countries, for example, Germany, which is the one of the best destinations to study abroad. It's because it has even for students coming from abroad, the tuition fee it's free, and then in Norway too. But in other countries, for example, in France, it's 2,800 euros, which is way less than what you can have in US, for example, if you want to do the study in US. So, for example, in Germany, like there are private universities and public universities. So most of the 97% of the public universities, you don't have to pay any tuition fees. So it's almost free. But the second thing that you have to really pay is your expenses. You see, your living, your accommodation, your transportation, everything that you have to pay. But for the school fees or the university fees, it's free. And so to pay for your own expenses, there are scholarships. So the scholarships, they do what? They help you pay for your expenses and pay for some semester fees. There are small semester fees which you have to pay. Like each semester there is a fees, but this is negligible in comparison to many other countries in US. So this is the reason why I think Europe is, especially Germany, is one of the top destinations for Indians in Europe. So you come here, and then all of you know about the German technology. They are the best in the field. German cars, German technology, So I think, I don't know, I need to explain anymore why Germany is preferred as one of the best countries. Second, then there is Norway, and then there is France. So there are these three countries which are the best, top, most destinations for Indians to study abroad. So why are the reasons to study abroad? You have a huge choice of education institutions. You have the international outlook. So for example, if you go to Germany, you need a visa to go to Germany. But then if you have a visa to Germany, you can travel to any country in the European Union. So you are kind of free. You can travel to any country. You can study in any country. And then you have a huge, you broaden your perspective. It's an incredible thing. So second, the quality of education. Like most of you know, each year Nobel Prizes, they are either German, UK, French, US. So these are the countries, each year the Nobel Prizes, they come from these countries, China. But I'm speaking about Europe, so German, French, they're always in their each year Nobel Prizes in any of the fields, there will be somebody from these countries. So you can imagine, they are cheap. The quality is world-class quality. Then they are more or less affordable when you compare it with US. And yes, and you have your own personal gains. You can travel, you can see the world. So there are many different reasons why I think that Europe is one of the best destinations to study abroad. And then I want to present to you guys who are going for masters, who will go for masters in 1 year, 2 year. There is this Erasmus Mundus program, joint master's degree. They have a huge range of master's degree, varying the field of study. It varies from science, engineering, technology, economic science, environment, geoscience, social science, humanities. It's not only for science and technology. So it's for everything, all the disciplines that you guys are studying. So it's the best program. Like some of the Erasmus Mundus program, they are joint programs between different countries. There's so the masters, they may be of 2 years, and you get to spend 6 months in 4 different countries in the Europe. So it's very interesting, this program. So I would ask you guys to who are going for a masters to look into this program. This year, I think 130 students or 35 students from India, they went for this, they are going for this Erasmus Mundus program. So I would ask you to go and check the website. You'll get all the information. So since I was talking about, yes, so this was my slide, I put it back. So why the reasons to study in Germany? So I told you, low cost of education, the economic stability is good, like the top ranking universities, there are huge number of scholarship available. The language is in English. Most of the masters, majority of the masters you will study, it will be in English. So there is no problem of language. But if you want, you can always learn German, and that will be another plus point in your CV when you'll come back to India and you will put like language like German, like you will get another degree of recognition with this. So there are many different reasons why you can choose to study in Germany. And for the funding, like there are a huge number of scholarships. The most common well-known and the most prestigious scholarship is the DAD scholarship. So here you have both for masters and PhD, you can apply for that scholarship. Then there are many other scholarships you can apply, like the Friedrich Ebert, Konrad Adenauer. So these are the different names of different scholarships, the Erasmus scholarship, which I was talking about. So you can apply to all these kinds of all these different scholarships, and you can fund your own studies, and you can study in Germany. The next country which I would talk about is France, of course, because I'm living here. So why France was attractive to me? I didn't do a degree here, but I'm working here. But I have seen the students, like for example, you don't need any tests. So you don't need any IELTS, GMAT, GRE, TOEFL, you don't need anything. And it's the world-class education, like wherever you see, there are like world-class level academicians in France. So one of the important reasons to choose France. There is like visa process is very easy. There are like the social security system in France is superb. Like when you study here, when you stay in a student residence, the government pays you money to lower your rent. So there are so many facilities for students to come and study in France. There are so many discounts for students. They have like huge internship opportunities, quality education and all. So all this I have already spoken about. So there are the famous fellowships which Indian students usually take to come to France, as the Charpak Fellowship, which is masters and exchange fellowships. Raman Charpak, the one I got, which is for 3 to 6 months, it's during PhD, or I think now they have also changed it to masters. So these are the scholarships that we can have when we go and study in France. The other information you can always find in this website. It's called Campus France. So there is a Campus France office in Delhi in India, and they have a website like Campus France and so you can go and you can find all the informations. The few disadvantages that I found when I first came here was cost of living, which was super high. But then when you have all these benefits, the CAF, all this reduction in rent and everything, you get a lot of discounts, and then all this like you can come and live here. But the second important thing is the language barrier. Like you have to learn French to make friends, to socialize. There are master degree programs in English, but still when you go outside, you have to make friends, and French is the language. So for me, I had to learn French. So that is one of the cons. But now I know that once you learn the language, like the opportunities are immense. Like you can go everywhere. So I put this slide before. So these are mostly, I spoke about masters, but PhD in Europe. What are the advantages of doing PhD in Europe? The most important thing is you get your PhD in 3 years in most European countries. Like in UK, it's 4 years. But in Europe, in Germany or in France, you get your PhD in 3 years, not 5 years like I got in India. So you have like state-of-the-art institutes with like world-class facilities, and you work with world-class experts. So one of the reasons to choose doing PhD here. Here, PhD students, they are seen as employees. They are not students, they are employees. They have work contracts. So they have like all the benefits you can think of a job holder. For example, they have health insurance, pension, and unemployment insurance, everything. Like me, I did my postdoc, but after the end of my postdoc and the start of my new job, I was 2 months, I didn't have a job, so I was getting unemployment insurance. So the government was paying me for 2 months to look for a job. So it's incredible here. So, and then the most important thing for PhD students, what we worry in India, is the funding. And once you are here for a PhD position, your funding, it will go throughout. You don't have to think about your fellowship being over, your JRF getting over, your SRF getting over. You get funding till the end of your PhD. So, so these are one of the most important reasons why you can choose to do PhD in Europe. I didn't know all this. I knew when I came here, so maybe I would have applied to Europe and not to US when I was looking abroad, PhD abroad. So now I know all this, so I'm trying to let you guys know if you are interested in applying for PhD. So the most important resources where you can find PhD positions are, if in Europe, there is a website called EURAccess, where you will find PhD positions of all European countries and which are funded. You don't have to look for funding extra. They are all funded positions, all subjects, from humanities, social science, physics, technology, everything. Then there is DAD for Germany, Commonwealth Scholarship to go to UK. Then there is TWAS. TWAS is basically for going to other third world countries. Like this is not really maybe you can also study in some countries in Europe with this TWAS. And me, I would really ask you guys to really look into the DST website. Like DST is our Department of Science and Technology in India. Please look into the DST website. DST, what's new? There are always new proposals for PhD positions with different countries, like bilateral proposals and all. You will find a lot of things, a lot of information about different awards, different PhD applications, a lot of things. So I would ask you to go and look into the DST, what's new. Like I found a lot of information from DST, what's new. So this is about PhD in Europe. Now I would just tell how like I told you in the beginning, like I did a lot of mistakes during my first time when I was applying to PhD in US, and I found out that my CV was weak. And why weak? So first you have to make your CV strong. And CV strong, by what does it mean by make your CV strong? Of course, you need good grades, but grades are not like, you need good marks, good percentage, but they are not everything. The most important thing to make your CV strong is through internships. Like do internships anywhere. Like it doesn't have to be in IITs or anything. You can do internships. Do internships. Like use your summer months when the college is off. Do internships. So it's very, I cannot stress on this, like how internships are important. Like me, when I was a master's student or a bachelor student, I didn't know anything. So I didn't do any internships. I did the mandatory internship in my master's final year. But internships, like internships, do internships. Then other than that, go do other extracurricular things in your CV. Like sports, volunteering, very important, like volunteer. Then join other societies and join other like your university societies, like take part, be involved in such, like these things. We don't care when, like I didn't care when I was in my masters. I didn't take part in any of this, but when I came here I saw that these things, they matter so much. Like this gives so much weightage to your CV. The second thing is research. You have your phone, you have your internet. Everybody has internet now. Do everything. Don't go to education consultancies which promise you admission in different countries. Don't do that. Like you will spend money, but do it yourself. Like why don't you do it yourself if you have everything you need to do? Then the third thing is connect with people, like network with your peers, with your seniors who are studying abroad, who are planning to go abroad, with your professors, and people who did, with whom you did internships, who were somewhere. You just connect, just ask them how did they do, what are the things they did to get the internship. Just take information. The other thing is publications. The publications, I know it's like in masters, what publication can I get? Even publication, publish your blog, publish your in your newspaper, anything, publication, anything written with your name in, you can put it in your CV. Anything. Like don't write a publication on a Bollywood movie, of course, but if you can critique it really well and you're applying for film studies, of course, why not? But really publications, even if you write your blog, you can put it in your CV. Write publications with small science communication websites, journals, you can put it in your CV. And finally, work hard to get your degree. Like, okay, all these things, but also you need your grades. No, people say now grades are everything. Like grades are not everything, but grades are something. So you need your grades to finally. And the most important thing when you are applying for abroad is start early. Apply for as many scholarship as you can. Like when you go and when you see, apply to, like you see, okay, one scholarship application, most of the time you don't have to pay anything. Like maybe like 99% of the time when you apply for scholarship, you don't have to pay any fees. So apply for as many scholarships you can to get at least one or two. And don't wait till the deadline. As I told you, you have to start early. Please start early. Please apply to as many applications, as many scholarship you can, so that finally when you get acceptance from a college or a university, you have the money to go and study and do whatever and fulfill your dreams. The one more important thing that I want to highlight is, like when you apply for this, a scholarship or for different universities, you have to write a letter of motivation, which is very, 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 very important, like very important. Like this letter of motivation can make or break your application. So take it very, very seriously. Like you can take help for letter of motivation if you think you cannot express yourself very well. Like in this letter of motivation, you really have to pinpoint of why you want to study, why you want this scholarship, what will it bring to you, what will you bring with this scholarship, you bring to the university, because it's not only about taking, it's also about giving. Like what will you give to them? For example, you can say with this scholarship, like me, when I applied to Raman Charpak, I said with this scholarship, I will create a collaboration between my French and the Indian university, which was true because when I was looking for this scholarship, I did all the research and I sent a lot of emails to a lot of professors. For PhD applications, you have to do that. You have to apply, you have to write to a lot to different research groups, different professors to ask if you can come and work there. So I was doing that. And luckily, I got a response from somebody who was interested in my work and who wanted me to come and work there. And as a result, we had this collaboration. I built this collaboration between my PhD university in Tezpur and this university in France. So with this, we did some other further works, and I did some other works apart from the scholarship period, which helped me in finally publishing my thesis, PhD thesis. So it was very important. So this kind of stuff, like why do you want to take this application, scholarship? Just don't think about just taking for yourself. Also think about how will you bring value to your country, to your institute, to the college where you are going. All these different kinds of questions, you have to mention it in the letter of motivation. For this, you can take help from people who are good in writing English and such. So you can take help, but don't go to consultancies. Like, you can do it yourself. So, okay, so now you have got your scholarships. You are in abroad, but I would like to say a few words about how to make the most out of your experience abroad. So it's very, very important. Some people, they come here, they think that they have got the scholarship, they will study, and then they really get depressed. Like, they see it's a huge cultural shock, a huge change. So for me, I would really like to say a few things about how to make the most out of your experience. Like, connect with people, go out of your comfort zone, travel, of course, live like a local there. When you go abroad, live like a local, study the culture. Like, it's different, of course. Sometimes it's a huge cultural shock I received. But then you have to respect. You are in a different country. You have to respect. You have to accept their culture, and then you can get friends. You can get really create good bonds with people, like with your professors, with your fellow students, everything. And embrace the opportunities for growth. For example, in my case, it was learning a new language, French. It was very hard. Like, I'm not fluent in it, but I passed. Like, for my job interview, I had to pass 6 interviews to get the final job offer. Like, for this one position, I had to get 6 interviews, and I did interviews in French. But when I get blocked, like, they are open-minded. So when I get blocked, I changed it in English, I expressed in English, I came back to French. So you have to be open to growth. And then finally, involve your family. Like, take them as your, take advices from them, but to not depend on them completely for troubleshooting. For example, if you're abroad and you feel depressed, don't put it on your family. Share with them, take advices, but do not depend on them. And finally, come back or not. Like, for me right now, I'm staying for a few more years, I think. I don't know the future, but make lots of memories and experiences, and finally a strong CV so that you can get a job. So I'm just presenting a few other sources to find scholarships here at the end of my talk. So in UK, there are a lot of scholarships where you can apply. This Chevening scholarships. Then there are Felix scholarship, and I presented, I think, before there are a lot of scholarships for UK. This is Inlex Shivdasani Foundation scholarships. I think it's for Indian students to go to any country. So you can look into all this scholarship in Google. You will find a lot of information. There are many scholarships. I just put a few there. Like, I cannot list it in my presentation. I listed a few websites where you can go. Like, I found this website very well done, wemakescholars.com. Then there are scholarships.com. Then they go to the university websites, like the universities where you want to apply. You will find a lot of scholarships in their websites. Like, you can see which one you are eligible, which one you are not, so you can apply. Most importantly, look at the different websites like DST, DBT, UGC websites that we have in our country. Look at them. They have a lot of information about different scholarships. Like I said before, like, research. Like, if you do research, you will find a lot of scholarships. I thank you, everybody, for listening to me. And if you have any questions, I can take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for such an evocative and enlightening presentation in a way to understand the several processes serving its way to avail the different opportunities from foreign sources. I believe that this particular session has enriched us with wide range of gainful and propitious knowledge in exploring the possibilities to apply for foreign universities and also availing the foreign scholarships. Thanking you, ma'am, for guiding us with such an informative session. And here I can see that our participants have raised few important queries in regard to the concerned matter. So, with your permission, ma'am, may I bring forth some important questions? Okay, ma'am. Someone named Hashim Yusuf has asked, that apart from SET, GRE and
Hmm.
TOEFL, can we use professional certificate to apply for
In
scholarship?
some countries, they like in UK, in some universities, in some cases, you can really prove like you did all your schooling in English. You can have a certificate, and sometimes it works, but not all of the time. Like I'm not sure if it works for most of the time, but sometimes it works. Like you have to convert, you have to make a certificate that you did all your schooling in English, and your English is up to the level, like you have published in English, you speak English. So at that time it can work, but not every time. Like I don't know, like depends really on the university application, university rules.
Thank you, ma'am. There is another such question where it's asked, is there is any scholarship in the nursing program?
I don't know about nursing, because like me, I was searching for physics and material science. But I think you can, like the references that I gave, you can really put in them, like in the websites, nursing scholarships, and I'm sure you will find something.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there is another such question asking if you have any idea about postdoctoral program in food science and nutrition, France or Germany.
France, I don't know. But I have few people who are working in Netherlands, like in food science. They have like really good universities in Netherlands for food science. But in Europe, it's for postdoc. So you can look in the website Eurexes that I told you, EURAXESS, Eurexes. You put food science, I'm sure you'll get a lot of offers which are ongoing.
Thank you, ma'am. There is another question by Tamima Rahman Borbhuya asking, is there any option for students undergoing graduation in humanities?
Yes. Just as I told you, like if you are undergraduate, you want to do your master's, look into the Erasmus Mundus joint program. Like they have humanities, social science, they have master degrees for different fields. So you can really look into the Erasmus program. You can find some scholarships.
Okay, ma'am. And similar to this, there is another such that if there is any option for LLB in abroad.
LLB, I think I don't have much knowledge about that, but I think for LLB, for example, what I understood, like when I was discussing with some of my friends in France here, like you have to pass a specific exam to come and study LLB here or something. So I'm not sure, but I'm sure you can look into like in Google, and you will really you can find the answers. Like for LLB, I'm sorry, it's not in my subject domain, so I will not be able to answer. But I'm sure Google will help you really, like everything.
It's okay, ma'am. It's okay, ma'am. Ma'am, there is another question by Bhavna Das. She asks if there is any, what are the different scope after postdoctorate?
After postdoc, you can go to industry, like I did. Like I made a transition from academics to industry. Or you can go for academic positions, like you can go for teaching, you can go for research. So you can and you can do something altogether different. You can open a startup, you can open your own company, you can do whatever. But the main thing you can do is you can continue in academics, or you can go to industry like I did.
Thank you, ma'am. And with this, I think our discussion, the queries has almost come to the end. And with this, I also thank you, ma'am, for such an elucidating discussion. I hope our respected participants and their queries have been able to meet their expectations from this clarified discussion. So once again, thanking you, ma'am, for giving us the honor to have your presence as our guest speaker for the session, How to Avail Foreign Scholarship and Apply for Foreign Universities. And with this, we have come to the end of our second technical session.
And also, I would like to add that our next session will begin now within a few minutes, and this will be moderated by Miss Shana Sultana. Thanking you, ma'am, once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to me. Have a good afternoon. Good luck. Bye.
Dear participants, kindly stay tuned to us. Our next session will begin shortly, within few minutes.
Good, good afternoon, sir. Dr. Himabrata, sir. Dr. Himabrata, sir.
Good evening,
Sir,
everyone.
am I audible, sir? Yes. Start.
Hello,
Sir, am
Suicidal.
I being audible
Sir, it's
here?
going to start. Huh?
Yeah,
Hello,
I
am I
can
being
hear you.
audible here? Good evening to all the participants, and a special good evening to our guest, Dr. Himabrata. So much for taking out valuable time joining us. Well, today's session, our third technical session, will be about the art of is currently working as in Tezpur Medical College in psychiatry college and hospital. And he also did his diploma. He also did his diploma in hospital administration from the Tata Institute of Social Science. Excellent anchor, a very good singer, cricket commentator. Is also
Shanaz ma'am, excuse me, Shanaz ma'am.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear, ma'am.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear. It's cracking.
Has research in psychiatry, and
Shahnaz ma'am,
he published
sorry for interrupting. Your voice is not clear.
various peer-reviewed journals with high impact factor. Yes,
Yes, Shahnaz ma'am, your voice is not audible. It's getting cracked. Please, can you just
a minute.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I am Dr. Himabrata Das. I work as Registrar in the Department of Psychiatry at Tezpur Medical College and Hospital. I've also done my Executive Postgraduate Diploma in Hospital Administration from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. And I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk to you on this very auspicious day, which is Teachers' Day. So happy Teachers' Day to all the teachers who are joining in, all the educators, the scholars who are carrying forward this tradition of learning. And I'm really grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak to you on this very auspicious day. I really look forward to having a wonderful interaction with all of you. And this is such a big event. This is, in fact, the first time I am speaking at an international seminar, and I am really excited. So I can see a lot of messages pouring in. I just hope that you can hear my voice clearly. And
Yes, sir. You are
I
audible,
must
sir.
take the opportunity to thank Mr. Shahidul from the Department of Chemistry, without whose invitation it would not have been possible for me to come and talk to you on this wonderful occasion. As we all know, we have been, and it's so nice to receive these beautiful messages and wishes from all of you wonderful people who are joining in, and it is really overwhelming. Okay, then this year 2020 has been difficult for all of us, owing to the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has led to a lot of psychiatric complications in society, and it's a pertinent topic that Shahidul and his colleagues have picked up to try and talk about what we can do really to make sure that we ensure our emotional well-being in these troubled times. Now, it's very important, before I begin, to talk a little bit about what is normal. And normality is a very important topic in psychiatry. So what might be normal for me might not be normal for a 15-year-old. What might be normal for a 55-year-old might not be normal for me. So it's very important to try and understand what and how we can define normality when it comes to psychiatry. Now, different models have been used to try and explain what is normal in psychiatry. The first model, of course, is that normality is being above average. So if you take, just like we have intelligence quotient or IQ, if you take the IQ of a large population, the people who are above the average should be considered normal. So well, that is self-explanatory. The second interesting concept in normality is regarding maturity. So it's a very interesting observation that Erik Erikson made, and some of you from the background of social sciences will have read Erik Erikson, and he maintains that there are 8 different psychosocial stages of development. So he very nicely points out that most of the students who are listening in today would be from the age group of 13 to 19, right? And this is a stage when he says the goal is to form your identity. And those who don't form their identity, what happens is they end up with role confusion. So these teenagers that we talk about, adolescents, who are at the transition between childhood and adulthood, these are the people who are striving to form their identity. So the question of who am I and what does it mean to be myself, those questions get resolved by the time you are 19. Erikson says that as we progress into the next stage, which is in the age group of 20 to 40, and this is also an age group that a lot of us are in, and this is the age group which is characterized by intimacy versus isolation. So now in the age group 20 to 40, what happens is your identity has already gotten formed, but now you need intimacy. You need somebody, or you need a bunch of people with whom you can share your ideas, because you also need to now know about what is going on in their lives. Okay? Unless you have intimacy, you find out that you are isolated. What about those in the age group of 40 to 60? Erikson says that this is the stage where the demand is to be generative. So the challenge is between generativity and stagnation. So by generativity, it is meant that by the time you are 40, you have reached a stage where you formed your identity, you have intimacy. At the same time, you now have to give back to your juniors, you have to give back to your younger generation. So unless you give back to your younger generation, what will happen? You will stagnate. And this is why we come across this common term, right? Midlife crisis, something that happens at around 45 to 46 years of age up until 50 years, suddenly the thought strikes that what have I done to my life? Because now I can't give back anything. There is nothing that I can contribute to my juniors. So that is an important phase of life. And the last stage, according to Erickson, is for those who are above the age of 60. And now, if you think of life after the age of 60, it's almost like you are watching your own biopic, right? And that biopic is now coming to an end. So it's like 15 minutes left in your own movie. And there is just no way you can go back in time and change whatever has happened, right? So you know that your movie is now coming to an end. But the truly wise people, the truly wise elders, or the truly wise senior citizens, what they do is they look back at their life and they think, okay, then some of the things that I've done well. Some of the things I've done are not that good. But end of the day, it's my story. It's my biopic. It's my life that I have lived. And I will remain at peace with whatever has happened. And that is why with the last stage, or the 8th stage of psychosocial development, integrity is what we are looking for. And unless you have integrity, you will have despair. Now, that is why a lot of senior citizens, especially in this pandemic, are also experiencing a lot of difficulties, because now they are trying to make sense of what is happening. So they might feel that I've lived 65 years of my life in a certain pattern, and suddenly this COVID-19 has come back and it's just changed the way my life is going to end. So that is one of the reasons why you see a lot of issues associated with the senior citizens as well. So depending upon which stage of maturity you are, your challenges are different, right? So very often we ask, who is a successful person, or who is a person who is mature? So if you want to, or people ask, who is that person who has attained integrity, and how do we do that? So to attain integrity, what you've got to do is you have to tick all the boxes, right? You have to go from one stage to another. So let's say if you look back at somebody's life, we look back at his childhood, we say, okay, he was good at school, he contributed, he was good with his parents. Then when he became an adolescent, he learned things, he was friendly, he had a good circle of friends. He spent time with his family, also with his career. So career consolidation is very important. And then he has some children, his married life is good, his relationship with society as a whole is good. He has retired properly, he is now earning a pension, and now he has empowered his younger generation. So that would be the idea of normality, depending upon what stage of your life you are in. Now, the third model to try and explain normality is that normality is about positive emotions. Now, a very important component in emotional well-being is to try and put focus on positive emotions, but there is also a tendency sometimes to really ignore any kind of negative emotions. And very often you come across people who say, don't be afraid, don't get sad, always stay positive. So it really makes us wonder what it really is that is so integral about negative emotions. And if you look back at our evolution as human beings, negative emotions have been very important, right? And these negative emotions like fear, anger, and sadness, they have actually helped us survive throughout the centuries, because we have always had to be up against an adverse environment as we were evolving. One interesting thing about negative emotions and positive emotions, if you contrast, you find out that negative emotions make you negative emotions are always about yourself, right? So it is always I get angry, it is always I feel sad, it is always like I am frustrated. Whereas when you talk about positive emotions, and love is of course the most positive emotion you can think about. And if you look at romantic songs and movies, what happens is when someone falls in love, even the trees look romantic, right? Even the flowers seem to talk to you, even the birds seem to talk to you. So the power of the positive emotion is that it can transcend from the individual to a broader scope outside of you. The same with faith. And faith has been a very important positive emotion which has helped us evolve as human beings. You talk about emotions such as compassion and satisfaction. Those are also emotions that really do not restrict themselves solely to the individual, but can really go ahead and embrace the whole of humanity, if you like to think of it. And positive emotions always work on the parasympathetic system. So if you look at the nervous system, there's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is meant for panic. It is meant for the classical fight or flight response, whereas parasympathetic activity is what makes us calm, which reduces our pulse rate, which reduces our heart rate, which gives us a sense of tranquility and peace. But it's very important to understand that emotions are just like the spices that you have in your kitchen, right? So if you are making a dish which requires salt, and if you put sugar into that dish, the taste will be terrible, right? You can't eat it. So it's very important that in a given situation, we have the full range of emotions at our disposal. We have all the positive emotions, we have all the negative emotions, but it's very important that we use our intellect and judgment to use the proper kind of emotions in the proper kind of situation. That is what happens, right? And that is actually one of the reasons that is impairing our emotional well-being, because what we are doing is we are trusting the wrong people. Okay, so you are not supposed to trust that person. You go and trust that person. That is why you end up in sorrow. Let's say somebody offers a hand of genuine help to you, but what happens is because of mistrust, you don't trust that person. So it's very important that we try and understand that we have to utilize the important positive and negative emotions according to the situation. Okay. Now, the other important thing about normality is that is it only sufficient to have the right emotions? So let's say there is a lion outside roaming on the street, and I have the positive emotion of love. Okay. So two of us sitting inside a room, one friend tells, please don't go outside, the lion is going to kill you. But then I say, what negative emotions are you talking about? I have love for the lion. So what I do is I walk out of the room and then I get killed by the lion, right? So it's not only important to have the positive emotions, but it's important that you have socio-emotional intelligence, something that is become very important in not only psychiatry, but in different spheres of research as well as in commerce and corporate life. It's an important concept, that of emotional intelligence. And it's very important that you have emotional intelligence so that you can modulate and try and utilize your you can utilize the defensive mechanisms or the positive emotions that you have, but depending upon the situation. So a lot of students face this problem, right? Where you have a student who has passed HSLC with 82% marks, joins higher secondary, but then what happens is if he or she is asked to present something, what we find is that that person lacks confidence, that person lacks the articulation or the skill to present or speak in public, right? So that is also a very important aspect that can also help you build your emotional well-being. And finally, it is also about resilience, normality, right? You talk to great people, and if you read the lives of great people, what they have done is they have been able to withstand a lot of hardships. And Madam was introducing me as a cricket commentator. I'm not sure I qualify as a cricket commentator, but if you think of the cricketing examples that really inspire you, one person that has always inspired me is MS Dhoni, right? And MS Dhoni has this very beautiful approach towards life, and he was a terrible, he was an outstanding finisher, and his philosophy was that he would have to bat out the full 50 overs, right? So if it's a 50-over match and if you get out after 25 overs, the only place you can score your runs is on the field. And there's a lot of talk about suicide prevention and what religion has to say and what ethics and philosophy has to say about suicide. But if you think of suicide, it's just a situation where you are playing a rash stroke and throwing your wicket away at 25 overs, whereas you should have batted for 50 overs, and then you could have really accelerated and maximized your potential. And lastly, the kind of coping mechanisms that people have. And there are different kind of coping mechanisms that all of us use all the time. Some of them are immature. The most common being there are some which are even neurotic, some which might suggest some illness, whereas there are some which are pretty psychotic, in fact, and where you might be actually detaching yourself from objective reality. So denial is a very common coping mechanism sometimes. So let's say somebody comes and says, "Are you've got an exam next week. Why don't you sit and study?" So the basic human idea is to think, let me live in denial. Are exam? No, what exam? I'll think about the exam tomorrow. Okay. So what you're trying to do is to preserve your ego or to preserve your well-being. What you're ending up in doing is you're living in denial. You're actually cutting yourself out from the objective reality. So that is a psychotic defense, right? Sometimes we use this very common technique of projection. So let's say I have hatred towards somebody else, but it's not acceptable for me to say. So what I do is I project my hatred inside me to somebody else. So rather than saying I hate that person, I will go about saying no, that person hates me. Okay. So that is also a faulty coping mechanism. When you come to some of the immature faulty mechanisms, you've got the classic displacement, right? And it happens very often in educational institutes, right? So the HOD will scold the faculty members. What does the faculty member do? Comes into the class and gets angry at the student, right? And the student is facing it because of the anger from the HOD. So this is something that we call displacement, something that happens pretty commonly. So it's important that we try and find out what kind of coping mechanisms people are using, because very often whether emotionally somebody is doing well or not is really an outcome of whether or not that person is using the right kind of coping mechanisms. Very often we use somatization, right? I'm not feeling well, my head doesn't feel nice, I feel giddy. So very often whenever there is anxiety or stress, we start describing and experiencing physical symptoms. So that could be thought of as a coping mechanism as well. What about the mature coping mechanisms? And those are the important if you want to achieve emotional well-being. The first one and the easiest one is humor, right? So it's always nice to be around happy people and humorous people. And we are seeing humor come into our lives in a very different format altogether, with all these memes happening everywhere on social media. You can just see how complicated things and how abstract concepts can be described very nicely using humor. So humor does not necessarily mean you go and hurt others, right? It is not bullying. And it's also it's important that we realize that it is difficult to be funny, right? So before trying to be funny, you have to be conscious and mindful that you don't hurt the other person. So that is also very important. But that having been said, humor is a good coping mechanism, just to try and take things lightly and crack a joke maybe. Then you've got the classic asceticism approach, right? Which religious scholars and elevated thinkers have always done. And this concept of boiragyo, right? Where you just detach yourself from everything which is material. That is hard to achieve, but that should be a very good way of really getting rid of anxiety and stress. So asceticism as a defense mechanism, altruism or philanthropy, if you look at it, and all the philanthropists around the world. And I know I'm speaking at this wonderful institution, which is also a charitable organization. And if you think of it, this is a great way of living your life, right? You give away whatever you have for the welfare of those who do not have that much. So that is why any act of kindness, any act of giving can really make us feel very good. And that is being proved even scientifically. So altruism is there. And of course, there is sublimation, right? And you see the examples everywhere in creative arts where there is a setback. Let's say there is a failed relationship and the person becomes a shyer and starts writing poetry. The person becomes a painter. So trying to channelize the negative energy into something positive and creative. So with this, I'll end my opening monologue. Very important for all the students to understand that you have to know what is normal in psychiatry. So let me just quickly give you a quick revision. First of all, has to be above average. Number two, it has to be about maturity, depending upon the stage at which you are. Number three, about positive emotions. Number four, about emotional intelligence. Then you've got resilience. And lastly, the important coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms. Thank you so much. Then I'll be very happy to take some questions from the audience and then we can carry the discussion forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for such an enlightening session. It has helped and guided us in understanding the stability, especially the mental stability. It has helped us to understand the normal in this new normal as an alternative solution to this epidemic situation. We truly appreciate your engagement in this workshop, especially on this particular session. And with this, we'd like to come up to the discussions round. Participants has asked many important queries, which we would like to forward to you, sir.
Before you ask me the questions, Aditi, I think we have to take a moment to try and thank technology, because we are 240 odd people listening into this telecast, and it's only been possible because of technology, right? And we are using Google Meet to talk today. But it also brings me to something very interesting, because traditionally for centuries now, human beings have always been sitting in a circle, right? I mean, all of you would have gone for excursions and picnics outside. So what is to happen is you sit in a big circle and there is a fire, right, in the middle, and everybody talks. This is actually one of the shortcomings of the Google Meet format, where it's almost like you are looking up at the screen. It's almost like a Night Super Mutunda movie, right? And you can't see the faces of everybody else. So I think maybe the next time we talk, we'll have an interactive software where we can see everybody's faces after some time periodically, so that nobody feels left out or alienated.
Hello?
Yeah, please.
Himabrata, sir? Am I being audible?
Yeah.
Oh, sir, we are extremely sorry for the technical glitch. I really apologize. We are so sorry for that, sir.
It's okay. It's a part of life now. It's something that it is also like Corona. Technical glitch is also something that we'll have to start to learn to live with.
How nice of you, sir. Well, sir, since your introduction was cut short, right, by this, so let me tell you, let me introduce you to our participants. As you have seen, our sir is really nice, okay? So Dr. Himabrata is professionally a psychiatrist. He is working as a registrar in Tezpur Medical College and Hospital in Tezpur, Assam. Dr. Das has received his MBBS and MD in psychiatry from Silchar Medical College and Hospital. He also did his PG diploma in hospital administration from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. An excellent anchor, a very good singer, a commentator. He is also a great columnist and is associated with several news portals like Way to Barak, Barak Bulletin. In recent times, he also covered the news on our film fair 2020, held in Assam. Well, Dr. Das has had a keen research interest in psychiatry and allied sciences. He has published several research articles in various peer-reviewed high-impact factor national as well as international journals. Well, Dr. Das is one of the leading philanthropists too and a social activist. Besides that, he recently launched a digital platform called Ziggy Mind aimed at promoting positive mental health. So, Dr. Himabrata is a person of many talents. Thank you so much, sir, for enriching us with your knowledge in this wonderful session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, for
So,
that
sir,
wonderful
can we forward the
introduction
questions to
once
you
again.
now?
I quickly scrolled through the questions, the message section, and I just could pick up a few questions, and I'll try and answer one of those questions. How do you keep control over
Okay,
irrational
sir.
thoughts?
So,
Sangeeta Krishna asks.
yes, sir.
Well, Sangeeta, it's a very pertinent question, and we tend to think of why is it that this irrational content just keeps coming to my mind, right? I need to focus about my career, but why am I thinking about Vicky Kaushal? So that is something which is a reality of life, right? You can try to focus about something, and then something else comes into your mind. It's actually interesting to look at the structural theory of mind, right? If you look at the mind, it's got the first component, which is of course the conscious mind, and that is where we have all the information, and this is the part of the brain which is in our conscious awareness, right? And then we've got things in our unconscious, something which we don't have access to, and things from the unconscious keep coming up, and it's almost like a kettle of water, boiling water, right? And just like hot water particles move up, it's just like that, things from the unconscious keep popping up into our conscious mind. And there is a barrier called the preconscious. So having irrational thoughts is actually the sign of being active and vigilant. So if you are encountering irrational thoughts, what that means is it's your unconscious which is trying to give you some inputs. There are various ways, of course, of strengthening the mind, and there are a lot of techniques that have been described both in psychiatry as well as in different religious practices. So every time, the next time you encounter irrational thoughts, just make sure that you are mindful of the fact that these are coming from your deep unconscious, okay? And then we've also got a question on, we've got a question from Jyotima Nath, who says, how not to panic when preparing for some exam during this pandemic. And there has been a lot of talk about the JEE exams and whether schools should open and whether universities should open. I mean, before I answer your question, this pandemic has affected everybody, but I think the young people and our students especially have been worst affected. And the reason is this is the time when, like I said, your identity gets formed, right? This is the time that you learn not only from your books or your teachers, but also from your peer group. You learn from your colleagues. This is a time when you have the freedom to express yourself without any harm or without any panic. So this is a period that has been difficult. And we know that in our country, online education, although is a mode of, we have no other alternative at this point, but we are a very big country and we have a lot of problems. So not everybody or not every family has access to smartphones or online education. So that has been a challenge. Coming back to your question about panic, it's important to try and understand why there is panic, especially before exam. And I'd just like to try and explain to you what really happens in a panic attack. And it is a very distressing subjective experience for the person, whoever experiences. A little while I mentioned that there are two systems in the body, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system. The sympathetic system is meant to get activated whenever the body thinks that there is any danger lurking around. So in this case, the danger is the exam, right? So most probably you are worried more about a viva. So what will happen? What will they ask me? Or will I be able to answer properly? What if I have a brain jam or a thought block? How do I respond to a situation like that? Will I make a fool of myself? So these questions really come in. And this is what leads to what we call in medical terminology a panic attack. So what are the components of panic attack? So how can you identify that you are going to have a panic attack? So first thing what happens is the sympathetic system gets overactive. So there is increased breathing, so there is increased respiration, there is palpitation. You can feel that your heart is beating at a higher rate, right? You feel dryness of mouth. You feel as if there is nothing inside your throat. There is a funny butterflies kind of sensation inside your stomach, inside your stomach. What happens in your lower limbs is there is a tingling type of sensation. And in extreme of cases, if you ask people, they'll say, sir, I feel as if I'm about to die, because it's just a choking sensation where there is a sense of impending doom. So this is regarding the clinical presentation of a panic attack. How you can overcome a panic attack is by practice, of course. And number one, knowing about this. So very often people do not know about this, and that is why they struggle before the exam. The second way to get rid of panic is to try and channelize the stress. And when we talk about stress, which is of course a term that we have borrowed from physics, right? Now, stress can be both positive and negative. So some amount of positive stress is important, right? Some amount of anticipatory anxiety is important, so that you are focused and your attention is undivided and you are working hard on your exam. But negative stress, what it does is it just bogs you down, and you start to think negatively, and you start to experience a very distressing situation, right? So the first way to get rid of panic is to try and prevent it. Try and know about panic. Try and know your body a little bit well. Meditation helps a lot. If you try some breathing techniques or some breathing exercises, those will help. It's very important that you have a mentor. And today is, of course, Teachers' Day. A big thank you for inviting me on this very auspicious day. We are celebrating the birthday of our past president, Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who was a great scholar and a great thinker. So it's very important that you have a right mentor. And the role of the mentor is to try and tell you about exactly this, about what really happens one day prior to a big exam, so that you can really prepare and visualize that. Also, try and maintain a routine. Also try and maintain, and it's important that you keep realistic goals. So these are the few things I would recommend to get rid of panic attacks. And then we have a question about intelligence, emotion. Agni Chetri asked me to clarify what is meant by emotional intelligence. Agni, what is really meant by emotional intelligence is that what we think of intelligence is like rote memory, right? When we think of intelligence, we think of the frontal lobe that is in front of the brain, and that is the part that is responsible for the executive functions, right? So planning and sequencing of events, and how you can do a multi-step task, complex task, how you perform, that is dictated by the frontal lobe, and that is usually thought of to be intelligence. But emotional intelligence is a relatively new concept, but it is very important. I mean, I will come back to the cricketing analogy again, right? Only yesterday you had this, I don't know how many of you watched the first T20 between England and Australia, right? Australia were cruising in the second innings. They were sure to win. But what happened is suddenly they lost a few wickets, and then Marcus Stoinis came into bat in the final over, and he comes in with a huge reputation, right? They call him the Hulk, and he can hit big sixes here and there. And it was, what, 16 runs to win of the last over, and he could only connect once. So only 1-6, and then the Australia lost the match and England won. So it's not important how much you know. It's really not important how gifted you are and how knowledgeable you are. It's important that you have to perform in the match situation, right? You have to perform when you are working in your college, when there is a presentation. That is the time when you should speak, right? When your teacher asks you, that is when you should answer. When you are working in an organization, when your boss asks you to get something done, the ability to get that thing, and not just concrete intelligence, that is emotional intelligence. And then Sheikh Nazir, has written about Erickson's psychosocial development, and he raises a very important question about if we are not developing trust towards people, is it our fault or is it fault of our parents? Okay, so one of the first steps in Erickson's theory is trust versus mistrust. There is a lot of literature about how much role parents have to play in a child's development, and you cannot deny that, right? Studies have shown, and even we know from our own anecdotal evidence, that early life experiences have a very important role to play in adult life. And the basic understanding is that whatever early life experiences you have had, it's more likely that you will enact them in your adult life. So that's an important point. Trust and mistrust, a very good question, that one. And let me just quickly go through. It's so nice that some of you have written some nice things about the presentation. Moksima Zaman asks a very important question about how to overcome suicidal thoughts, and this is something that requires a brief discussion, because suicide is one of the burning issues, leading cause of death, and the entire country has been talking about suicides, right? Especially after the death of Sushant Singh Rajput earlier this year, and it has really sparked off a debate about how you can prevent suicide and what are the community strategies that we have to adopt to cut down this menace. So that's a good question, Moksima. The first thing about suicide that you have to understand is there are different types of suicide, okay? And when we talk about suicide in the context of psychiatry, we need to learn about depression also. So to overcome suicidal thoughts, the first thing that you have to do is to try and understand that there are 3 cardinal signs in depression. The first thing is low mood, which persists for over 14 days. So if you ask somebody, how do you feel? He will say, no, I'm not feeling well, I'm not feeling happy. The second thing is that there will be loss of energy. So the person might have been very energetic earlier, let's say in the college or the university, he or she was the most active person, but suddenly something's gone wrong and you see that the energy level in that person has come down, okay? And the third important feature of depression is a lack of the ability to derive pleasure from day-to-day activities. So it's a very common experience, right? That everything that we do every day gives us a little bit of pleasure, right? And there is this hormone called dopamine, which is responsible for this pleasurable activity. But in depression, the third symptom is that of anhedonia, or the inability to derive pleasure. So if you ask the person, what happened? You look very sad. What is the matter? So he might say that no matter what I do, I used to get a lot of pleasure listening to music before. Let's say I used to derive a lot of pleasure going out with friends before, but now those things are not giving me any pleasure. So those are the first 3 symptoms. There are certain associated symptoms as well, and you will have disturbances in sleep, you will have disturbances in appetite. If you speak to that person, you will come across that there are ideas of pessimism, right? People might say, there is no point trying to help me, I have no future. So they might say that the future is bleak, and that there might be nihilistic thoughts as well, that this whole world does not exist, I am already dead. So there might be some extreme cases as well. And one important feature in the depression is suicidality, or which might not always be an act, but there might be suicidal thoughts. So if you have suicidal thoughts, the first thing that you have to try and understand is you need to seek help, okay? And that help might be at different levels. It's very important, first of all, that you try and ventilate whatever is bothering you. And depression, when we talk of, although there are cases of depression which are endogenous or which are happening without any etiology, but in a vast majority of cases, especially in youngsters, the suicidal thoughts stem from some kind of stressor, okay? So the stressors and the precipitating factors need to be identified, and the help has to be sought so that these suicidal thoughts do not persist. Preeti Karmakar asks about this big question about how someone can come out from negative emotions. And like I mentioned, Preeti, you have to understand that negative emotions are also hardwired into our system, right? There are negative emotions. There is a reason why we have negative emotions. If you imagine yourself without any sadness, if you imagine yourself without any anger, if you imagine yourself without any frustration, then your life is going to be meaningless actually. So these are actually protective elements, and these emotions are something that you will need. So these are like some of the weapons that you need to have in your arsenal. Okay, so the idea should not be to come out of negative emotions, but the idea should be to think a little bit about whether I am using my negative emotions appropriately. So am I getting angry at the things that I should get angry? Am I getting sad at the things that I should get sad? Am I getting frustrated at things that I don't have any control over? And this is something that I keep telling youngsters, and you talk to people who have achieved success in life, and they will always tell you that it's very important to try and find out which are the kind of problems that you can solve, or which are the things broadly which are under your control, and which are the things that you don't have any control over, right? So I'll just go back to one last cricketing story. You think of life as an opening batsman, right? And when the opening batsman comes out to bat, you've got to be very, very particular about where your off stump is, right? If you are chasing a ball way outside the off stump, chances are you will get a nick and you are going to get caught behind or caught at slip. So it's very important that you leave those balls which are way outside the off stump. Try and know which are the balls I will play, which are the situations where I will use my negative emotions, because negative emotions are very painful, of course. So you've got to be intelligent enough and try and find out that which are the situations that deserve my negative emotions. Lack of confidence, also something that Preeti mentions, that's something that you've got to try and find out about the situation proper, right? So once lack of confidence really comes from lack of knowledge, if you think of it, right? If you know something, you won't be lacking in confidence. So it's important that you reframe and try and look at the reasons why I don't feel confident. So which are the situations where I don't feel confident? So let's say if I am asked to speak on chemistry, like your speaker, like your teacher, I'll suddenly feel a lack of confidence, right? Because I don't know much about that subject. So it's important that you try and isolate which are the situations where you lack confidence, and then try and improve your awareness and your knowledge, which can help you with your lack of. Okay. Aflatun mentor asked how to overcome negative thoughts. Parashuram has an important question about is isolation tending to negative emotions? And this is also a very interesting question, right? There are two terms. One is, of course, isolation. The other one is solitude, right? And if you look at classical, if you look at the iconography of the holy men, if you just imagine holy people, what do? They live apart from their families. They live on their own. They have an exalted viewpoint towards life. They are seekers of truth, right? And what they're trying to do is they're keeping themselves away from the hubble of the towns and the villages. So when you look at them, when you look at truly enlightened people, although they live in isolation, they look very happy, right? It's because they have a wealth of positive emotions inside them. And a lot of people ask me about what happens in isolation, sir. We are in lockdown, we are in quarantine. Thankfully, we don't have any more lockdowns and nighttime curfews. So that is something which is now a question of the past. But it's interesting to discuss, because a lot of people have thought, sir, what happens when I'm in isolation? Why is it that bad thoughts come to my mind? And you can try and do a thought experiment, right? So let's say I make a Xerox copy of myself, and now two Himabratas are living in the same room, okay? Now, if two Himabratas live in the same room, will I be happy living with the other person? Chances are I won't be happy, right? Because chances are there's so much negativity, there's so much hatred, and there's so much greed, and there is so much negativity inside of me that I can't live with myself in the same room. So that is exactly what is happening. So if you can fill yourself with positive emotions, if you can find the true meaning of your life, isolation will not lead to negative emotions. Muxima's also got another interesting question about how do you overcome daydreaming. And daydreaming is a fact of life. It's actually a sign that you are very creative. And different people, Muxima, have different levels of daydreaming or, I mean, if you think of the unconscious thought content that they have, what we call the fantasy life in psychiatry. It's not something to overcome. I think it's something that you have to encourage. But just like I mentioned to Preeti's question, I mean, you've got to be mindful that you don't do it at the wrong time. And then Anurag Tiwari has also asked this question about how we can remove this negativity during the isolation. Anurag, like I said, you've got to try and find out what is it about yourself that you don't like, right? You have to try and find out, you have to become a better human being. And that is just as simple as that. You just have to find out whatever is good inside of you so that you can spend more time with yourself. Ravi Das has also asked about the negative impact of this pandemic. Ravi, what has happened with this pandemic? The problem has been of two kinds. The first one is, of course, about the virus. So, do I have the virus? Do I have the illness? People are scared that I might transmit the virus from me to other family members. So that is one. And it has been a very tough time for the economy. I mean, you look at some of the sectors like transport and even hospitality. Some of the industries have really had a very bad hit, and it's an ongoing pandemic. So time will tell when we really come out of this crisis. The government is trying to do its bit, but it's really been difficult. And the way we can overcome the pandemic is we have to promote creative thinking now. We have to make sure that we come together. One very important aspect, Ravi, is if you look at happy people, and happy people are always those people who have social interactions. They are number one people who give. Like I said, altruistic people, like the people who have founded this university, they have done something for the community. And that is something which is very important. If you want to become happy in life, you can't just contain wealth with you. You've got to do something big with your wealth, number one. The second thing you've got to do is you have to form close social circles, because we are a species that needs validation, right? We need people to praise us. We need people to guide us. We need people to even criticize us. So it's important that way. And number three, happy people are always grateful people. So I mean, it's just a simple trick or a piece of advice for everybody. We are coming close to 1 hour here. So every day, try and say thank you to somebody. And just it could be anybody. I mean, today you will be saying thank you to a lot of your teachers, but every morning just try and praise the maker, and just try and find somebody who, and just say them thank you so much for all that you've done. And that is some of the key things that you can do to overcome the negative impact. MARYAM asks about maturity is a part normality. So how can one know that he or she is maturity or mentally mature or not? Well, mentally, whether someone is mentally mature or not will be evident from his behavior. And very often, whether somebody is mentally mature or not is detected by the teachers and the classmates at a very young age, right? It is in fact something that people notice first rather than the person himself. And then Momita Mondal asks about how can we manage anger. Anger management issue, like I said, anger is also a very important defense mechanism, right? Without anger, our species would have really become extinct very soon. But we don't want that to happen. We need to find out whether the anger is stemmed at something that we can really change, or whether we can shift or transform that anger into some kind of positive emotion. Shamima Prodhani asked a very interesting question about how to stop thinking about something that didn't happen. Okay, so something that didn't happen, and that is a very common human phenomenon, right? This is also something that you can't really stop thinking. So let's say you were supposed to do in Delhi, but you could not go there. So now you are regretting, or you are cursing yourself. So that is a very common real life situation. My answer to you, Shamima, would be you can't stop that. You can't stop that. Like I mentioned, those thoughts are coming from your unconscious mind, right? So you don't have much control over it. Only time will help you in stopping those thoughts. And whenever you have those thoughts, try and learn from why you could not go, or why that thing did not happen. Sometimes you should be grateful also that there must have been a negative side to something not happening. We've got some more questions, and great to see people joining in from everywhere. We've got participants from Odisha as well, and also from the American University of Middle East in Kuwait. Dr. Mustafa joins us. Thank you so much. So many wonderful questions and so many.
Thank you so much, sir. You put up such a wonderful and engaging session. We actually benefited a lot from the session, sir. Really.
And
Mehsin
Shin Jamir tells us that so he's talking about mental stability. We may not be suffering from it, but we can use this information to help our near and dear ones. Yeah, Mehsin, I think this pandemic has also given us an opportunity to think about the mind a lot. Because if you think about what we were doing 4 or 5 years back, we had become a very materialistic society, right? We used to value material possessions a lot, and suddenly with the lockdown and the pandemic, we have now realized that how important it is to be mentally stable. Yeah. And Sheikh Nazir talks about fixation occurring in the early stages. How can we overcome it? Quite an academic topic, Sheikh. I mean, time will not permit me to answer that question, but I'd love to talk to you about the different stages of development and fixation at different stages. Rubina Kazi asks about failure, frustration. Rubina, frustration is a very basic element of life. And in fact, frustration is the hallmark of life, right? If you think of it, what is life? Life is about meeting hopeless people all the time, getting disappointed all the time, and then waking up the next morning and trying to find out. I mean, if you look back at your life, out of the 100 people that you have met, you would have 90 people would have been people, 90 people you come across out of 100 are people you can learn nothing from, right? So you've got to be mindful. That is important for dealing with failure, frustration, because there might be a lot of reasons why people fail in life, but you have to associate and align yourself with successful people. You need to find the right mentors. You need to find the right teachers. You need to find the right inspiration to try and overcome failure. Moksima Zaman asks, when a teacher or someone expects to say joke, everyone found it funny, but if poor performing students say that same joke, everyone laughs at him. Yeah, and that is society for you, right? It's very nice. I mean, that's a very good point Moksima makes, that who makes a joke is also something that social norms got to dictate. Okay, and quite a few comments coming in. And I think that will be it from my side. Ipshita asks, how can we manage our doubts? How can we manage our doubts, Ipshita? We have a lot of doubts because, you see, our brain does not work like a computer, okay? We are not truly analytical. And doubts also are very important part of our cognition. If you look at illusion, the classic example of the snake and the rope, right? Because our brain has evolved not to be absolutely perfect, okay? So our brains are not very scientific. Our brains are actually meant to discriminate from anything dangerous. So the evolution does not want you to be a supercomputer, okay? Evolution wants you to just live. Evolution just wants that you stay where you are. You do not want to slip down the evolutionary ladder. And that is why we have doubts, because our brains are not optimized to look at the objective reality of the world. We are actually making faulty mental representations of the objective reality. Okay, so this is one of the reasons that we have doubts. And whenever we have doubts, we have to understand that the way to get our doubts clarified is by introspection, number one, and also by educating ourselves, by trying to learn more about whatever is there. And there are different levels of learning, right? And once you have the latent learning, once you imbibe whatever you have learned, you should not have any doubts. But it's a difficult process, but with a good mentor and a good teacher, it can be achieved. Inuara Begum says it was a great lecture. Thank you so much. Dr. Mustafa says outstanding. So many nice words from all of you strangers. And that is the other beautiful thing. We're coming towards the end. The best thing about life is we often tend to think that let me see. There are so many strangers. Stranger anxiety is a very common phenomenon, right? So these people are strange people. Will they judge me? Turns out people you know, they hate you more. Strangers love you. Love you more. Strangers love you more. And everybody at MAW, CST, HOJAI has certainly given me a lot of love. Thank you so much for this wonderful session.
Thank you so much, sir. You have been really nice. You have provided us such an insight into this topic. Like, you've been really helpful. All of us have been struggling a lot during this pandemic, right? Especially with mental health. Your session was really enriching and it was really engaging. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your valuable time and being here with us. It's really an honor to have you here, sir.
And I really enjoyed speaking with you because it's a very knowledgeable audience, and all of you are scholars, and all of you are doing a fantastic job by organizing this international seminar. A big thank you to all of you, and I'd really like to come and visit your college sometime in the future.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. You're always welcome, sir. You really provided us great knowledge today, and I'm sure it must have benefited the participants a lot. In fact, I personally have learned a lot from this session. Really, sir, you were wonderful. We really loved your session, and thank you so much for being so considerate.
On this special occasion of Teachers' Day, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you then.
Thank you so much, sir. And since you've taught us a lot today, happy Teachers' Day to you also, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your interactive session. And I would also like to thank all the participants for being there with us and for making our session a success. I hope you have benefited a lot from all the 3 technical sessions of today. Now, let me inform you that tomorrow we'll also be holding technical sessions. That is, we'll have 4 technical sessions, which will start at 10:30 in the morning. Our first session will be that of Cybersecurity, a Global Threat, by Mr. G. Jishan Ahmed, HOD of Department of Electronics and Communications and Vice Principal of Global Institute of Engineering and Technology, Hyderabad. Followed by How to Read Scientific Literature by Dr. Samiran Garain of Kyunghee University, South Korea. Next, we'll be having Followed by that, we'll also be having an afternoon session, which is Recent Trends in Drug Discovery and a Brief Overview. Then followed by the last session, a basic discussion of remote sensing, GIS, and GPS. we look forward to active participation from all of you, and thank you so much for being there with us. We hope you have learned a lot, and that's all for today. Thank you. Let's see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone, for your great response. And thanks to all the speakers, as well as all the organizers for organizing such a wonderful program. Thank you, everyone. Besides that, another thing I should mention here is that those who have not been able to attend Google Meet will get the recordings in our YouTube channel. We'll forward the links to you. Thank you, everyone. A very good evening to you all.
দেখি কি বলছে এসে গেছে আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আর ওটা কোথায় লিঙ্কটা আমার কাছে ওদের একটা চ্যাট গ্রুপ আছে না
পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছে
সেখানেও পাঠিয়েছি
পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছে বাবা খুললাম তো এটা আসছে পাঠিয়ে
শেষ হয়ে গেছে না ভেরি গুড